All right. I'd like to make one appeal, please. From the please, I'd like to make an appeal. It might be inconveniencing, but then please do us the honors. From the fifth seat, I'd like to request if you're seated from the fifth seat, can you please step a bit forward? So let's use only the first 4 rows, please. The first 4 rows. Please, let's sit together. I'd like to appeal from the fifth seat, please. Just come forward. The first 4 rows, please. The first 4 rows. The first 4 rows should be used. The first 4 rows from the fifth should be empty, please. The first 4 rows, please. I beg your pardon. Are there friends behind? I'd like to request the first 4 rows should be used. Let's leave the fifth, please. The first 4, please. Please, madam, can you please, I beg you. Let's use the first 4 rows. Let's sit together. Gentlemen from behind, I'd like to please beg, can we please use the first 4 rows? Please, no, please, I insist, please. Thank you. Part of the ways to industrial development is adhering to instructions. So I'd like to appeal to you. You may find it inconvenient, but please, if you do this, it's not for me, it's for all of us. I'd like to request those of us from behind, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, again, allow me to welcome very specially our dear Auntie Elizabeth Shaba, Honorable Commissioner for SMEs, Niger State. I welcome you. Let me also welcome from the Bank of Industry, Mr. Obaro Osa. I welcome you. Thank you for coming. And also with us on the platform this morning, I'd like to welcome Dr. Mohammed Ibrahim, Chairman, National Gas Expansion Program. I welcome you. Let me also welcome a big auntie and sister from the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. I welcome you. I'd like to also welcome with us this morning one who has really shown so much of capacity, one who's working so up and doing to see that we have a very fine morning and fine exhibition. Dr. Abdurrashid Yerima, I welcome you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I shall recognize other guests as we proceed. But to get down to business, it's my very distinct honor and privilege to welcome. But just before then, like I said earlier, a few recap of what we did yesterday. This event had Dr. Yerima to welcome guests. That was yesterday. The ceremony was formally declared open by His Excellency the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, through the DG SMEs, the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment spoke. We had a presentation from UNIDO ITPO. SSA2 President on Job Creation was here. We had representations and presentations from ECOWAS. Like I said earlier, powerful delegation from Cote d'Ivoire, from Ghana, and elsewhere. We had very organized and engaging plenary sections. We also had a presentation from SMEDAN. After also did a presentation, and so we shall begin. The BOT Chairman, NASME, the President and Chairman of the Governing Council, NASME, representative from UNIDO ITPO, representative from ECOWAS, captains of industries, chief executive officers, stakeholders in industrial development, the Industrial Development Center, delegates and participants, observers, the press, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, we will begin with a paper presentation and discussions bordering around empowerment. Our first paper this morning is to be presented by the Bank of Industry. The topic, Empowering Women and Youth in Nigeria, MSMEs, and Advancing Towards an Inclusive Green Economy. To do this presentation, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome Mr. Obaro Osa. He is the Divisional Head, SME South, Bank Bank of Industry. Shall we please put our hands together for him as he steps forward here for his presentation? I welcome you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Are we happy? Thank you. You know, when you be at the first presenter, you know the brain is very fresh. And everybody had a very good night rest, I believe. So you are looking forward to listen to the first presenter. What am I going to speak about? It's something we all know. So it's going to be an engagement. So I tagged the talking points, you know. But first, let me thank once more the organizers of this program. I'm sure all of us have learned one or two things since yesterday. And we'll learn more today and also learn more tomorrow before we depart. The topic of my talking points is empowering women and youths in Nigeria MSME and advancing towards an inclusive green economy. Empowering women and youths. You know, yesterday, we did say that when you look at the demography of Africa, that more than 70% are people below age 35. If you do a further dissection of that demography, you will realize that of the projected 210 million in Nigeria, it's a 50-50 thing. The women and the men composition is 50-50. Some report will say 51-49, others will say 52-48, but I think it's close enough. So the bulk of these people who are below 35 are also women. Mothers coming up, mothers to be, young women and all that. So this topic is very critical because the mass of the people you manage, the mass of people in your family, the mass of the people in your community, in your office, belong to this category. They are young people or they are women. So it's very critical. So I will start by trying to define what do we mean by a green economy. And I did say that a green economy is one that is low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. Yesterday, we were talking about alternative power because we cannot run our lives strictly on carbon using fuel, fossil fuel, diesel, petrol, etc., etc., etc. So we're looking at alternative. So it can be solar, it can be wind, it can be generating something from biomass gas that can use to generate power to drive your industries. Now, when you say resource efficient, it's something that does not hurt the environment. It is cheap, it is easily available, and you can deploy it to run your operation. And of course, socially inclusive, i.e., everybody needs it. It is not for the rich alone. It cuts across classes of everybody. So it prioritizes investment in activities, infrastructure, and assets that reduce carbon emission. Again, that connects to the environment. The less of the environment we destroy, the better we protect the environment and the better lives we live into the future. Improve energy efficiency and protect biodiversity and ecosystem while driving employment and income growth. United Nations Environment Program, that was a quote from the United Nations Environmental Program. Small businesses play a crucial role in low-income individuals, youth and women who are most susceptible to climate change impacts and transition risk. These businesses also contribute to social, economic, and environmental benefits aligned with sustainable development and that of a green economy. It is imperative to foster economic growth that not only enhances job prospects for the youth and women, but also tackles environmental and social issues. This is essential in realizing the sustainable development goals as set by the United Nations. Furthermore, making substantial investment in the social economic empowerment of women and young people is pivotal to our pursuit for gender equality, poverty alleviation, and fostering an inclusive economic expansion. According to the World Bank report in 2022, women make significant contributions to economic growth and poverty reduction across the world. When more women work, economies grow. And that has improved from statistics. If you train a woman, you actually train the entire community. If you educate one lady, or you provide capacity or economic empowerment for one woman, you actually do it for the entire family. It doesn't be proved that there is no educated woman that has uneducated children, but the educated men who have uneducated children. So it's very critical that we actually focus how to push up the women. If we push them out, we help the system, we help the environment, we help the community, and of course are protecting our future. According to World Bank in 2022, women make significant contribution to economic growth and poverty reduction across the world. When more women work, economies grow. In Nigeria, for instance, the labor force participation rate among female as of 2022 stood at 52%, lower than their male counterparts, which stood at about 65%. Despite the relevance of women entrepreneurs in the global economy, they remain disproportionately affected by poverty, discrimination, wage and financial gaps, as well as exploitation. These gender dynamics collectively hinder women's progress in accessing financial resources. Thus, empowering women in the workforce, whether formal or informal, and reducing gender disparity are critical for achieving the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal, specifically Goal 5, which spoke about gender equality, and Goal 8 that speaks about decent employment for all. The Western and Central African region, with a population of about 500 million people, has over 40% of this population as under 15 years old, making its youth a significant asset. For example, Nigeria is expected to increase by approximately 60% between 2015 and 2030. It is projected that in the next couple of years, Nigeria will be the third largest country in the world, because we're going to hit around 450 million people. And so what we are doing now is so critical. If we don't do it, we're going to have more problem. Today we are battling over 210, 250 million. You can imagine if you now multiply that by 2, you now have 400 people who need to eat, who need to go to school, who need to move around. If we don't take the steps we are doing now to support MSMEs, we're going to have a bigger challenge into the future. Given these facts, it's vital for all West and Central African countries to make the most of their young population to boost their economies. Also, the fourth industrial revolution and the growth of the digital economy provide new and amazing chances for development that weren't available before. Yesterday, we spoke about this at length. Looking at the demography, looking at the focus on technology, and what can be done for our youth to get engaged using technology to create economic empowerment, to create jobs for themselves, to set up small-scale businesses, that you can actually use your phone to generate business. There are several things that can be done using the internet, and we need to connect to it, because if you wait for the corporate environment to create that job, it doesn't exist anymore. So we need more MSMEs to be set up to employ 1 or 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 across the federation. When you do that, then those people are gainfully employed. You can promote entrepreneurship, you can promote skills development, and of course you can promote the overall gain of getting more people out of poverty. Overview of women and youth-led SMEs. Globally, MSMEs represent about 90% of all firms, provide nearly 70% of jobs, and contribute up to 70% of the global GDP. This from a World Economic Report. So it's a data published by the World Economic Report. In Africa, small businesses make up to 90% of all companies, create more than 2/3 of the jobs, and serve as centers of innovation. They have the potential to boost Africa's industrialization, agricultural growth, food security, and structural transformation, speeding up the adoption of the African continental free trade area. Yesterday, there was a very detailed conversation on AFTA, and there were two schools of thought. You know, a school of thought here said, are we ready? We done only to dumping on Nigeria. The second school of thought said, no. Even China, in those days, they had products they sell to Africa, and we say they are not good. They are fake products. Chinese products are not good. But they kept at it. They took those feedback back, and they corrected those errors. Today, they've taken over the world. So it's better to start now. In fact, there's no better time to start than today. If we wait until everything is ready, we may not start. So you start. A person that enrolls for exam, that has possibility of failing or passing. If you don't enroll for exam, there's no way to rate you. So going for an exam means that you do some preparation. Even if you don't pass, you've learned one or two things. You go back and do it again. Eventually you will pass. You will scale that hurdle. But if you don't even attempt at all, there's no basis to rate you. So for me, it's better to start now. Let's throw the door open. Let's start. There are advantages and there are disadvantages. But yesterday, the madam from NEPC said something that I wrote down. He said, why can't we start with those commodities where we have comparative advantage? If you cannot take all, start with the ones that you know you are better in producing it here than Ghana. You are better producing here than Cote d'Ivoire. Start with those ones. You know, perfect it, polish it, package it well, and sell in that bigger market space of almost 1.3 billion. In fact, AFTA is the biggest trade bloc in the world today, if it's well put together, because of our size. MSMEs in Nigeria, as at 2020, accounted for 96.7% of businesses, 87.9% of employment, and 49.7% of national GDP. This is a SMEs report 2020. They did this report, and what I'm doing is just to quote that report just to back up what I'm presenting. This indicates that MSMEs are a driving force in both Nigeria and the global economies, creating jobs and promoting economic growth. The Faith Institute State of Entrepreneurship in 2021 report shows that 43% of entrepreneurs in the country are women and 67% are youths aged between 18 and 35. This statistic buttresses my earlier comments. When you have a population of this magnitude with over 70% below age 35, it means that you can't lock people in any room to plan for the country and you ignore women and the youths. Your data will not be correct. You must take them along because of the sheer size and the sheer amount of people within that block. Everything you are doing, you must consider women and youths. I tried here to identify some barriers faced by youth and women-led MSMEs in Nigeria. Despite their clear influence, women and youth-led businesses often encounter substantial hurdles when it comes to advancing towards a green economy, which may include accessing international markets and establishing strong, adaptable value and supply chains. Some challenges, I try to list some of them, include: 1, changing climatic conditions. Changing climatic conditions poses a threat to Nigeria's inclusive growth, particularly due to the dominance of the oil sector of the economy. The heavy reliance on oil makes it challenging to separate emissions from economic growth paths, hindering the transition to a green economy. Selling green products and services. Green products and services and technological advancement frequently encounter obstacles when trying to center the market or gain consumer acceptance. Green technologies typically come with increased costs and demand greater initial capital compared to conventional enterprises. For instance, if you want to put a solar plant in your house or your factory, you know the initial investment is very heavy. But if you want to use generator, 300, 400,000, buy a generator. You go to the filling station, buy fuel, 2,000, 3,000. You put it on, the power is on. But if you project, you use generator for 10 years, and you calculate how much you spent to buy fuel. If you calculate it, because you are spending it piecemeal, you don't know how much you are spending. Your recharge card, you buy the phone 100,000, but the amount of money you spend on recharge card is more than 100,000 over a long time, the lifetime of that phone. So the same thing here. So green technology, why people are not embracing is that because you need that initial high cost to install the solar power. But once you can take that cost, if you project for another 10, 15 years, you are better off. You can do the calculation yourself. Because once you put the panels, they just little maintenance. The sun is natural. It comes on its own, it is stored, and you use it to drive your businesses. Market access and challenges. Numerous women and youth-led businesses lack access to cross-border market information and face challenges in forming links with potential buyers, suppliers, and distributors. So this is very critical for this program will come for now. Because yesterday, there was a presentation on AFTA and what they do to connect to the global African market. Because global market is not only going to Europe. Once you leave your border as a country and you are trading with Ghana, you are involved in international trade. It does not mean that you must go to London first. No. Once you cross your national boundaries and you are doing business across that border, you are far away or go to Europe or America. We are then saying that under AFTA, you have the power now to connect to more than 1 billion people in one market. Because Nigeria market is about 200 million people. But once you are put on AFTA, it's about 1.3 billion market people that you can actually sell to. So it gives you a bigger market. And access to market can be created if we learn all the requirements, rules of origin, what you need to do to play in that big market. So I will say that we need to do more reading. We need to be very rigorous. Yesterday they shared with us all the sites, and I expect us to take it back and read about it, make inquiries, visit NEPC, pick a phone and call, ask questions, use your phone, go to their site and read about it so that you can know what to do to play in that big market that is emerging. Inadequate infrastructure. Inadequate infrastructure poses a significant challenge to businesses in Nigeria. This includes issues with transportation, energy, basic facilities, which can hinder productivity and increase operational costs. Yesterday, one Baba was here. Oga, he said he came to Abuja by road from Cote d'Ivoire. Am I correct, sir? You came to Cote d'Ivoire. Yes. He said he came by road. And he spent 2 days? 5 days. That's infrastructure. Rail line, you won't spend that long time. If you have a good road, you won't spend that long time. So that's infrastructure. Whereas to go to China, you won't spend that time. Just get on the board, you arrive. So we need to bridge all those gaps. And our government, were yesterday, I'm sure they took some notes, and I'm sure in the survey carried out by Faith Institute in 2021, 14% of entrepreneurs highlighted lack of energy and infrastructure as their biggest barrier faced in running their businesses. Access to finance, this was also discussed yesterday, is very critical. So you have infrastructure, you have other challenges, but also have access to finance. Women and youth entrepreneurs are greatly underrepresented and underserved at all levels of the financial system. Hence, they face multiple challenges in accessing finance, from raising debt, equity, or supplying goods and services to the global value chain. In Africa, there exists an estimated $42 billion financing gap for African women across businesses value chains, including a $15.6 billion in agricultural businesses, according to the African Development Bank in their 2023 report and survey. Young entrepreneurs also face a similar problem as young entrepreneurs across Africa, also experiencing severe shortages in financing, with a funding estimated at about $140 billion. This is also a recent report published by LSEG African Advisory Group report in 2020. We also have challenges of risk. Lending to women and youths are perceived to have a higher risk, leading to the imposition of prohibitive interest rates. Furthermore, women frequently lack conventional collaterals and guarantees. Some women in Africa, in some places, they don't have right to own properties. So when you don't own a property, you don't have a CFO, you can't lend, you can't borrow money, because that's a requirement. You know, so if we remove all those barriers, it will free up capital to flow to women and youths. And some of them are cultural inhibitions, but I think as we progress, those can be addressed little by little. You know. Then the other challenge is your capacity. Financial institutions struggle to grasp and meet the specific needs of youth and women entrepreneurs, who in turn may not possess the financial and business knowledge required to address the demands of these institutions. The business environment is also very challenging. In numerous countries, for instance, the rules and regulations related to businesses create obstacles for women fully engaged in the expansion of the private sector. So I also did some recommendation, apart from talking about the challenges which I've highlighted. So some of the recommendations that we think, if we apply one or two, may help us. The first are institutional, legal, and regulatory framework to foster collaboration and formalization. So one, I said, encourage MSMEs to formalize operation to access government incentives. I think yesterday, somebody said, how can he access grants? That he applies for grants, each time he applies, after the application, nobody gets back to him. So a lady said it somewhere there. Now, so I was thinking, what is the issue? I think it's not understanding the requirements that you need to have to be able to access those grants, those funding options. If you don't meet the criteria for accessing the grant, because these are funds that are rationalized. You don't have enough money to give to everybody. So it's rationed. So if I have 100 million, that is the capital size. I can't spend more than 100 million. So meanwhile, the demand for that 100 million is about $1 billion. So I need to have a criteria to ration that 100 million, okay, to all the people who have applied. So I must have a set criteria. And it's only those who meet that criteria that will be able to access that grant or window. So we are saying here, there should be a way where if you want to access a grant, you should look at the criteria. And first of all, if you involve engaging consultants who will help you look at whether you meet those criteria. And don't be in a hurry. If you don't meet the criteria, you can always come back and apply again. I'll round up now. Sorry. It's like this morning, there's so much pressure on time. The other reason I try to recommend here is skills development and capacity improvement, which is what we are doing since yesterday. These kind of sessions, so much is learned, so much information is passed to our people, and people can take advantage and ensure that we have enough knowledge to run our businesses. But I need to take this point. How do you assess financing for our youths and female-led SMEs? One, please, let's have a streamlined accounting opening processes. The collateral literacy program should be enhanced further and publicity given to it. What are the requirements, for instance, if you want to borrow money from Bank of Industry? There should be no publicity. What are the requirements if you want to borrow money from Zenith Bank or a commercial bank? Either through the regulator like CBN, there should be a massive literacy campaign of financing and the funding opportunities and collateral requirements so that people can be ready before they seek funding from financial institutions. There's also the consideration for a blended finance option that recognizes equity and debt and hybrid of financing. So financing should not only be seen from the debt perspective. It can be a hybrid of equity and debt. And of course, there are other alternatives in looking at the entire financial superstructure. For BOI, what have we done in this space? We are focused on youths. So we have some bespoke products developed to strictly focus on youths. I will talk about one or two. We are the supporting agency for CBN under the product they call the CBN Ties scheme, launched and funded 100% by CBN. We also work with the National Youth Service Corps under our Graduate Entrepreneurship Fund program, which we started for about 7 years back now, and for which we disbursed almost ₦1 billion to several entrepreneurs. In addition to that, we have a Youth Entrepreneur Support Scheme, YES program, which we launched also about 6-7 years back, and which we are trying to revamp now, and for which we created jobs and supported more than 3,000 entrepreneurs in the country. BOI also has funded more than 15 tech hubs spread across the Federation. They are in Lagos, they are in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, they are in Unilag, they are in Kebbi State, they are in Kaduna, they are in Osun State, they are in Edo, Kanu, Oyo, Bauchi, and of course Port Harcourt. All these tech hubs are 100% funded by the bank, and the essence is to create an environment where our youth and women can go and hone their skills and promote entrepreneurship. We also have a full-fledged gender desk in our head office in Lagos that is strictly focused on women, women-led businesses. And the way we define it is that businesses either 100% owned by women, at least 51% owned by women, or businesses managed by women. So if you're not an owner, but you're an MD of that company, we tag that business as a women-led organization. So we're looking at both ownership and also management. And we've done several things in the paper, but because of time, I may not be able to go through all this. But I've sent it to the secretariat, and I'm sure they will circulate it to everybody here as long as they have your email addresses. So I will sum up by saying that because of the demography of Nigeria and Africa, the segment women and youths, we cannot speak about it enough. The conversation will continue into some days to come tomorrow, because that is so critical for our existence. And so anybody who is making any plan to say you want to support MSMEs and you don't consider that segment, your policy will not work. All policy thought process, all policy development and programs you want to envisage to support MSMEs, you must consider the women and the youth segment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'll now go into the details of the papers being presented here. But let me first recognize with us the chairman, Dawanal International Grain Market, Alhaji Mustafa Yusuf. May Kawai welcome you. Thank you. And so, to discuss this paper, let me welcome Dr. Rabiru from NASME, his deputy president. I'd like to welcome you to please join us up here. And also to join us here, Alhaji Nasiru Alasodoa to join us here. I welcome you. Alhaji Nasiru will join us up here. Shall we please put our hands together for him? He's been so wonderful, so great that he had to take 5 days on road just to be here with us. We'd like to thank and applaud your gesture. May I welcome from the Police Microfinance Bank. I'd like to welcome the representative from the Police Microfinance Bank, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll allow them to look into the paper that's been presented. I'd like to hand over to Dr. Nora to continue with this. I welcome you. Thank you. All right, we'll begin our discussions. I really like we'll keep it very, very precise. So because we have quite a whole lot of lectures, discussions to be going on today, about 6 of them. So I really would like we keep it very precise. Moderator, sir, please. Thank you.
All right. Good morning to you all. My name is Dr. Nora Bello, the Zonal Vice President, Nigeria Association of Small and Medium Enterprises for Northwest. I think today we have an interesting topic to discuss when it comes to empowering women and youths. There has been a lot of emphasis on empowering women and youths. As you know, women are the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable, right? That's what they said. And that's why they are trying to assist them to see how they can support them. And in terms of micro businesses, they are actually the #1 in terms of micro businesses. So we need to support them. And the youths, most of them, they are unemployed. We have told them to go to school, finish your school. At the end of the day, you get a good or high-paying job. And when they enter the labor market after their NYC, at the end of the day, they will now come to the reality that, look, these jobs that we have been told, they don't exist. So what do I do? So maybe 2 years, 3 years, no job, then they will think of what to do. So sometimes starting business is actually the last option. They don't think of it as the first option. And that is why we have so many unemployed youths. And if you look at the population of graduates from our tertiary institutions, is actually very high. And if you look at the number of maybe employment opportunities in federal, state, or local government, how many slots can we get maybe from those unemployed youths? So at the end of the day, you see that there are a lot of problems of unemployment. So we need to change that paradigm, and that is why we are going to have an interesting discussion on what can we do now as a people to change this narrative. How can we empower women and youths instead of being employed or looking for employment opportunities to be employers of labor, to be self-employed? With me...
Dr. Just a second, please. Just a second, please. For those who would need the aid of a translator, we have translators. Channel 1 is for English, Channel 2 for French, Channel 3 for Portuguese. So if you need a translator, you can please signify by wave of hand. They'll give to you. Okay, Channel 1 for English, 2 for French, 3 for Portuguese. Thank you very much.
All right, but just to add, if you look at most of the companies now that are springing up, you see that they are actually created or built by the youths. If you look at, let's say, Flutter Wave, who are the owners of Flutter Wave? They are just young guys. They came together and they were able to get a seed capital because of their genius ideas, and they were able to get funding. And today, Flutter Wave, you know, they are actually doing well in the fintech industry. Same thing with Paystack. Paystack, they are also young guys. They just came in together, and these are Nigerians. We have a lot of young Nigerians that are successful business men and women. So, but the rate of unemployment is so high that all the time we are looking at government. But government will only create policies and programs and enabling environment for businesses to thrive. So, but there are other agencies that would have to come together to see how we can support the effort of government in creating that enabling environment, and how we can support the women and youths to create businesses. So with me, one of the most important issues of maybe starting a business or empowering the women and youth is access to finance. Police Microfinance Bank, in what way are you supporting or empowering women and youths to see how their ideas of creating a business come to reality? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I want to introduce my bank. It is NPF Microfinance Bank, PLC. And you'll be surprised that probably it's for the police alone, but it's not for only the police. It's open to everyone. So yes, and we would like to say that we are friendly, we are customer friendly, so that you'll not be afraid when you hear NPF. Yes. So be that as it may, when it comes to the youth and women, we are passionate about them. So what we do is, first of all, we take them through trainings. There was a program we had one time for the barracks, the youths in the barracks, the women, and we called it Barrack Strategy, where we organized trainings for all the women. And we're surprised that by the time we opened our doors to the training at the various barracks across the nation, a lot of women came out and youths, and they were saying, in short, at a time we exceeded the limit of people who wanted to train, but they were begging that they are sleeping at home, we're not doing anything, please let me enter. I was moved, I was touched, so we had to just open the gate for all of them to enter, and we grouped them. So we trained them through a lot of skills, and the whole essence is to empower them after the training, because it's not just giving out money or funds to people without knowing what they will do with it. So you need to be sure that they are well equipped in terms of training and the kind of skills that they need, that they want to embark upon. So with that, we came up with various products for them. Like we have a product for women, we call it Better Woman. And that product is, the interest rate is so low, it's less than 2%. Better Woman. And we are telling women, I don't think you should use funds or finance as an excuse. I know our women are industrious. Most times when I'm coming back from work at night and I see women, they are still at the marketplace selling. I hardly see men, I'm sorry to say. These days, I hardly see men being so enterprising. Even our counterpart, when they open a business place, it's their wives they will put there to take charge, because that is what we are made of. So the necessary support these women need, we are here to give it to them. And that is why we are here also to tell them that our bank is a friendly bank. We have various products for the youths and for the women. Then for the youths, I see that they are so enterprising. These youths these days, I don't think they are as lazy as we think they are. They've learned one skill or the other. Some of them are into makeup, bag making, shoe making. So they might just need just a little money for a machine or an equipment, which the bank is ready to support them with. So those are the kind of things we have done in our own little way to support this sector. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Police Microfinance. Please put your hands together for. All right. I think NASME has come on board to see how SMEs can come together and promote or grow their businesses. Growing or nurturing your business is actually not a day job. So that's why NASME has, created that umbrella where we can always come together and see how we can help ourselves and also talk to government. So Dr. Kabir Dasuki, I would like to question, how is NASME supporting the women and youths? I know fully well the NASME youths and women wing, they are being inaugurated. But what are they doing and how is the association actually supporting the women and youths in the Nigerian ecosystem? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Dr. Kabir Dasuki, as he rightly pointed, and I'm the Deputy National President of the Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Enterprises for the Northern Region. Yes, before now, I was the national coordinator of the youth wing of NASME before I became the Deputy National President. We've been doing a lot in trying to make sure that we have able-bodied youth for them to engage in productive businesses. We, as an association, we not only sometimes sensitize, but we sometimes give out. After the training, we train most of the times, especially in some parts of the states, like Sokoto State. We trained in so many occasions, trained youths in various trades, depending on where we feel they have a kind of a competitive advantage. We now train them, and sometimes we equip them with some of the tools they need in trying to go into whatever they feel they can be more productive on. So we also do things like partner with some of the banks to get soft loans for them to start up their businesses. So we are into trying to see, because it's not all about the capital. We now realize that sometimes it goes beyond getting the capital to start a business. The management skills in trying to know what to do at what time and where to need money to now do whatever what is required is also very, very essential. So we continuously give trainings to our youths, and we do workshops, symposiums, and most of the time we get people, even entrepreneurs from all over, to now see how we can now put them together, tell them, give them the technical knowledge they require in starting up businesses. So we've been doing this quite a lot, and we want to expand this to other states. But for now, we've done like 5 states, and we're trying to see how we can increase the number of states so that we can have more coverage of getting youths to now participate in the active businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Can you please put your hands together for him? I know in West Africa there are so many other governments that are doing so much to see how they can empower women so that they can also reduce unemployment. Daddy, from West Africa, I've seen that you came all the way I think, is it from Cote d'Ivoire or one of these West African countries? You have so many people with you, entrepreneurs. I can see they have a booth outside here. And you are in Nigeria in this kind of forum. What do you think maybe, what do you want to say with regards to how our women and youths can get empowered maybe within the sub-African, West Africa sub-region?
Yes, good morning. My name is Alhaji Salami Nasiru. I'm the president in charge of policy on trade, on West Africa cross-border trade. West African cross-border trade, we have 17 countries, 15 ECOWAS member states. What we do in our association is, number one, we collect data, because for us, data is very important. Because if you don't have data, you cannot do anything. We collect data, we give capacity building in the area of information, we train people on self-employment, we arrange women in cooperative. When you go out, you see that those women, she came from Benin Republic, and we have some people who came from Ghana, and we have some people who came from the northern part of Oyo State. So we organize them in cooperative for them to work together in the area of self-employment. The youth, we organize them to become service provider themselves. We give them training. Because like I was saying it, you cannot talk about trade when you don't have statistic. I can give you an example. When you go to, most of you who know, I want to talk about some of important markets in Nigeria. We have Ilela market. Most of you know Ilela is between Niger and Nigeria. When you go to Megachari border is very important. When you go to GBR market is important. When you go to Mobi market is important. Those markets that are mentioned to you, those are the area we collect data. When you come to Shikanda, that is in Kwara State, we collect data in Shikanda. When you come to My 12, we collect data in My 12. When you go to Dawanu market, we collect data. Because for us, you don't talk about trade where you don't have what do you exchange among yourself. In WhatsApp, we give information on means of transportation. Yesterday, Dr. Yerima, I'm happy that you are here. It's very painful when people sit down in the office, putting law. Nigeria is sending onion to the northern part of Benin. Today, Samia border and Shikanda border is not open. The border between Nigeria and Niger Republic is closed. That is if you want to go through Kone. Those who will come and buy Nigerian onion from Sokoto, you are asking them they should leave Sokoto to Lagos. From Lagos to come to Cotonou. From Cotonou to come to Parakou. When you are going through that corridors, because you want to supply good, it's going to cost you 1,600 kilometers. When you go through Lolo, Samia, Maje, is about 600 kilometers. Now, I'm very surprised why those people did not here, I will ask him, you sit down in the office, you are talking about African Continental Free Zone. You cannot sell good to your neighboring countries. When you are talking about moving of good, you should know, where am I taking my good to? I want to share you one example. A company, UN, I think Nigerian police, I will give you the contact of that person, Yusuf. They wanted to send something in Gao. Somebody give them a bill of 2 million. I give them a bill of 1,200,000. Dr. Yerima. They say, who is this Alaji? I told them I know my job. I'm a service provider. He take that good to Maradi, Nyame, which is about 2,200 kilometers. I take my good through Kamba. Kamba, from Lagos to Kamba to Nyame is about 1,160 kilometers. So when you are talking about trade, you should know where are you supplying your product, Dr. Yerima. If you don't know the means of transportation, there's nothing you can do. So let us come down among ourselves, those who are policy maker. Dr. Yerima, we want to see them, we want to call them. They are well educated. Let them come with us. We sit down together. Let them come, those doctors, those professors. Let them come on round table between us and them to see who know the job. Are there the people sit down in the office? Because all this story we have been discussing yesterday, talking about African Continental Free Zone, I'm not accepting it. Because we cannot promote our product. I cannot sell onion to somebody from the northern part of Benin. And I want to sell something to somebody in Kenya. So my recommendation, we are going to be ceased. We want them, those professors, those doctors, let them come cease. We will sit down. They will call the ECOWAS head of state. I'm going to lead my team. They will lead their team. We sit down among ourselves. I will tell them, this is where our product is expensive. Because number one, you do whatever you do, you sit down in the office and do policy because you want to do policy. So I don't want to go too much. Like I was saying it, if you want to talk about trade, Dr. Yerima, you need to know statistics. But if you don't have statistics, what you exchange between Ilela and Koni, Dr. Yerima, you don't know what you change between Megatari and Dungas. You don't know what you change between Kamba and Gaya. You don't know what you change between Mobi and Marwa Garwa. You don't know what you change between Umfum and Ikok. Those areas, you sit down and you are talking about you want to go to African Continental Free Zone. We need to know what do we exchange among ourselves. In year 2015, I'm from Oyo State, from Shaki.
Yeah.
There's an issue. We wanted to know the potential of that place. I sponsor statistics of agricultural product from my local government. I'm not saying that for the border areas. I got 300,000 of agricultural product supply from Shaki to Ibadan, Ilori and other places. What we are expecting is data, Dr. Yerima.
Okay, sir.
In WhatsApp, we can give capacity building.
Okay.
So thank you very much for listening to me. God bless you. So again, our recommendation, I'm saying it, we want to see those policy makers, 6 of them. Among my delegation, Alhaji Mustafa Mekalwa is here. Is in charge of agricultural products.
Okay.
We have others who are in charge of perishable products. Okay. Let them come a round table.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're going to be an asset to the West Africa SME, and we're already trying to form a coalition of SMEs in West Africa before the end of this program. So I'm sure the president has heard you and you have talked to the right people, and UNIDO and some other organizations are also listening. So thank you so much. But I think maybe in a nutshell, I just want to summarize this, our panel, before we now welcome questions. Now, if you look at the development of women and youths, I think we have done well because, as you can see, we have an exporter here. She's a woman. Yeah, correct. Thank you. So no problem. I think because of time, maybe I want to stop for now. Maybe for questions.
Thank you very much. This is what we'll do. We'll rise to take group photograph. And for those of us with questions, at some point we'll have Dr. Yerima and a few others who will respond to the total questions we have. So if you have questions on any of this presentation, please either you may write or just keep them. At some point in course of the event, we'll have them being attended to. So please, we'd like to request you rise for photograph. Our photographers, please. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma. Thank you, all of you. Please, for group photograph before you exit the stage. Just hold on for Dr. Yerima, please. Oh, the paper presenter, please. We'd like for you to also join on this. And then some of us who may have some ancient questions, during our tea break, you may engage any of our speakers. Thank you very much. Shall we please put our hands together for them, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker speaks on energy efficiency for energy transition. Allow me to welcome Dr. Mohammed Ibrahim. He is the chairman, National Gas Expansion Program. Shall we please give him a resounding round of applause as he steps forward for his presentation. One more time, shall we please give him a befitting round of applause. I welcome you. Okay, multimedia, would you nicely display?
distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Mohammed Ibrahim. I'm the chairman of the National Gas Expansion Program. Pardon me if I do not recognize individuals, with their positions. I'd like to continue with the existing protocol. When I speak, I'd like to use the PPT, essentially so that we can drive the message home. So I may have to descend from the so-called high pedestal, to be on the floor, to be with you, all just so that we can follow the presentation. Thank you very much. One of the, I hope Aleji Nasser is here, the West African team, because we need them. He made certain statements that I think we need to, in a way, address, if only we can have him. Pour mes compatriotes qui sont venus du pays d'Afrique de l'Ouest, au nom de la République du Nigeria, je dis le bienvenu à tous et on espère qu'on va avoir une relation qui sera tenable entre nos pays. Merci beaucoup. All I just said in French is I'm welcoming our West African compatriots and we're assuring them that we're going to have a sustainable relationship. Thank you very much. Now, what is the National Gas Expansion Program? I could say so because actually I studied in France. I did my A-levels there and my degree in Sorbonne. So, now what is the National Gas Expansion Program? The National Gas Expansion Program is an initiative of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2019 when the government realized that although Nigeria is laden with hydrocarbon, but Nigeria is equally deficient, in petroleum resources, which has been the bane of Nigeria's underdevelopment. And we felt that we needed, therefore, to reverse this trend so that Nigeria can develop. I'm an energy expert, and then essentially, energy in this particular case has to do with electricity generation and transportation. If you can address these two major challenges in Nigeria, Nigeria's socio-economic development will in a fundamental manner be altered, and most of the problems that we have in the country will be addressed. And that is why we came with the program on the National Gas Expansion Program. I'm expected to speak about energy efficiency and how energy efficiency, affects, or serve as a catalyst for the economic renaissance, of SMEs in particular, and then the economy in general. Can somebody just help me shut the door, please, so that we can, have less noise coming from outside? I would really appreciate. I'd like us to, join. So my paper is going to be energy efficiency for energy transition, for SMEs. Next slide. We're going to look at the Nigeria's gas resources because our focus is how to use natural gas as a catalyst for Nigeria's economic development. How then can we use natural gas, or what then is the nexus between natural gas and energy efficiency, and by extension, therefore, our economic development? So what exactly is Nigeria? Where do we position, or what is the position of Nigeria in the global hydrocarbon sphere? We'll look at why did we say that we're going to use natural gas as a catalyst for economic renaissance. We'll then look at why then the government established the National Gas Expansion Program. What is the mandate? What is the structure of the National Gas Expansion Program? And then we'll now look at the global consensus, under the Sustainable Development Program, where the entire globe has now agreed that natural gas will be transition fuel, Then we'll look at, what exactly is energy efficiency, what are the benefits of energy efficiency as, it relates to the SMEs, and then we'll conclude, and then we'll make a statement about what is the way forward. Next slide. Next slide. Unlike what most of us would have been hearing over the last 70 years, oh, Nigeria is an oil and gas producing country, and so on and so forth. Nigeria is not an oil and gas producing country. Nigeria is not an oil and gas producing country. Nigeria is an oil and gas exporting country. Now, there's a difference. Production means that the processes and procedures, including the human capacity and the machinery and equipment that are required, to transform certain resources into finished products, are inherent in the system. Out of the 2 million barrels of crude oil that we produce, Nigeria, through the NNPC, produces less than 5%. The 95%, therefore, is produced by the international oil companies operating in Nigeria, with their equipment, with their technology, with their machinery, with their manpower. Therefore, if there was a crisis and the international oil company move out of Nigeria, Nigeria will not be in a position to produce more than 100,000 barrels. To me, that is a grave and serious crisis in our hands. Has it ever played out? Yes, it did. In 2020, during the COVID-19 situation, the production of crude oil got to zero, simply because Nigeria lacks the capacity, we lack the equipment, we don't have the technology, we don't have the manpower to be able to produce. So when the international oil companies, and their staff moved out of Nigeria because of COVID-19, Nigeria became very, very vulnerable. And that is what we're still paying for 3 years down the line. So indeed, we are just an oil and gas exporting country because the production is made by foreigners. Even the export, Nigeria does not have the capacity to export 1 barrel of crude oil because we are completely absent in the shipping industry. It's a big problem. So when we try to, glorify ourselves as being an oil and gas player, indeed as a nation we are not. And that is why Nigeria's economy is very vulnerable. And that is what we are suffering today. And that situation will not change in spite of whatever anybody tells you, unless we have a deliberate policy to reverse, this inherent weakness, in our superstructure. Therefore, let's look at gas. Nigeria indeed is an ocean of gas with a drop of oil. There's no part of Nigeria where we don't have gas. But there are very part of Nigeria where we have oil, but there's no part of Nigeria where we do not have gas. Right. That's the beauty of natural gas. Now, I just give you some numbers. For many years, the international companies that are producing our hydrocarbon, we have over what you call 200 trillion cubic feet of proven gas reserves, which can take us for the next 100 years. So the country has a lot of gas, proven. Unproven can even take us for another 400 years. But the irony? For more than 70 years, we've been producing crude oil and flaring the gas. We've been burning the gas. For those people who are from the Niger Delta, what you see is, you see a whole community completely illuminated. We need to get someone that will really shut the door, otherwise we'll never really appreciate what we're doing. So what do we have? For 70 years, we've been producing oil. And the oil that we're producing is what's called associated oil with gas, which means every time we strike an oil well, what comes along with it is natural gas. But we've always considered natural gas to be a nuisance. So what do the white guys do? They light the natural gas, and there are fields in the Niger Delta that have been burning natural gas for the last 70 years. And you go to environments where the entire community is illuminated. And if some of you are passionate about health, you discover that the melatonin levels in people that live in this environment is affected because there's no day, there's no light, simply because we just flare the gas. So what do they tell us? They say, oh no, gas is not important, you don't need it, let us flare it. And then years later, we go to meet them, and they say, we can help you, actually reduce some of the flares. And what do? We can help you to reduce some of the flares, but you have to give us fiscal incentives that literally make the gas to us free of charge, because we're helping you to take out the flares. So what do? They now take the gas almost free of charge, turn them in what you call the liquefied natural gas, LNG, and export. So you now have a situation whereby you now have them getting gas free of charge, exporting, making billions of US dollars, and then using those natural gas to produce textiles, fertilizers, pharmaceuticals, power generation, reimport back into our country, and we are here saying we have no electricity, we have no textile, we have no fertilizer, we have no food production. So what happened with this map? In 2021, our production in gas is 8 billion standard cubic feet per day. But export markets take 42%, which means 42% of the gas that we produce almost every year is exported, almost at free cost to them. Then the domestic market where we are, we use only 20%. Right. Therefore, we're export oriented. So we export the raw materials and then we import the finished goods. And the domestic market for the gas pays far more than the Nigerian consumer of the gas pay, while the exporters literally pay little or nothing. So you can imagine that the cost of goods and services produced in Nigeria are very, very expensive, while the same molecule of gas that is exported to China gets to China far cheaper than what the Nigerian entrepreneur or the Nigerian manufacturers pay for the same gas. This is just the message I'm trying to send across. Now, we use about 30% for what you call re-injection, because every time we want to produce crude oil, we need to re-inject gas to spur further crude oil production. And then we flare the remaining. Next slide. So, like I said earlier, the beauty with Nigeria is that there's hardly any part of the country that does not have hydrocarbon, specifically gas. Okay, so if you look at what do you call it, the Sokoto Basin, massive gas deposits in Sokoto Basin. As a matter of fact, Niger is currently producing a lot of gas and crude oil, and they have a refinery, and I was involved in that refinery project where we went to China and brought a 65-year-old refinery to Niger, and it has been operating for the last 15 years. Yet all the refineries in Nigeria do not operate. So today, part of the gas we're using for cooking in Sokoto, in Zamfara, in Kebbi, in Katsina, in Kano, in Jigawa come from Niger Republic. That's a fact. Because they have old refinery that is operating. We actually dismantled the refinery from Guangzhou, brought it to Zander, installed it, and it's operating. Right, so it's a fact. Now, if you look at the Borno Basin, again, the Chadians also have, in spite of the wars, they still manage their refineries. And, most of the, refined products you get in Maiduguri, Borno, Yobe, again, come from, Chad, right. Now, look at what you call the Bidda Basin that straddles between Bidda up to Kwara State. It's laden. If you look at, the Kulmani area, which we call the Benue Trough, that straddles right from Al-Kaleri, right up to Benue State, is laden with hydrocarbon. If you go to, the Anambra Basin, the entire stretch, Anambra, Enugu, Benue, is laden with crude oil and gas. And then, of course, the famous Niger Delta on the left, right. So as I talk, University of Lagos sits on gas. So there's hardly anywhere in the country where you don't have gas. But we've simply refused, because of bad leadership, to explore and develop the gas resources, for economic development. Next slide. So, like I was saying earlier, the green is our gas production. The utilization is in gray, while the fled. Now, because of our advocacy for the last 3 years, we have seen a gradual reduction in the flare out, which is a good thing. But then, export still still outpaces, local, consumption. I used to think when I was young that they say charity begins at home. Why should you export natural gas at cheaper rate than a Nigerian manufacturer, and yet we are complaining that we are not developed? We are complaining of high cost of transportation. We are complaining of high cost of electricity. And we are complaining of underdevelopment. This is the reason. No magic. Next slide. So, the National Gas Expansion Program was therefore established by the immediate past Minister of Petroleum Resources, Timi Presilva, with a mandate essentially, and I'm not going to bore you with that, so that we'll have time for discussions, to reinforce and expand gas supply as well as stimulate demand in the country through the effective and efficient mobilization and utilization of all available resources, assets, and infrastructure in the country, whether public or private. Next slide. And to use natural gas to take 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. Is it possible? It is possible. And I'm going to show you that this morning. Next slide. So what is the work stream we did that we feel could be really vital for what the purpose for which we are here this morning? We have a work stream. So we have what we call different initiatives. One of the first initiatives we have is what we call the compressed natural gas, that this current administration is now mouthing as if it's a novelty. It's what we've done over the last 4 years, right? We have an initiative called the compressed natural gas, whereby we're going to take natural gas. Let me just introduce to you a simple thing about geology and petroleum engineering. For women, what is a refinery at the end of the day? You take water, you put it in a kettle, you boil it, right? It's evaporation and condensation, no magic. Okay, if you open the lid of the kettle, you see droplets of water. That's what a refinery is all about. You take crude oil, you send it in, you heat it up. As you are heating the crude oil, some of the cuts that we are talking about will start coming up. The first thing that gets out is what you call cooking gas, butane and propane at atmospheric temperature and pressure. So you have your cooking gas out, a little bit of more heat, you get your kerosene, a little bit of more heat, you get petrol, you get diesel, and that's what it is. But then geology is even very, very easy. It's even much easier. What is geology? Geology is what you obtain through what you call a subsurface operation that will be able to establish to you whether indeed you have water, you have crude oil, or you have gas. So when we get the gas, every time you drill a hole, gas is already there under pressure. It comes up. And when it comes up, what do you want to do? We now clean it up. And the beauty with Nigerian hydrocarbon, specifically what you call the chemistry of our gas, that is that we have situation whereby gas in Nigeria constitute about 96% methane. What is methane? It is CH4. What is CH4? In your sewage systems, in your homes, if you have any toilet, your, whatever it is toilet, the gas, the odor that oozes out is natural gas. It's the same composition of natural gas, no magic. So you can get your natural gas from other gas, or you can get it from the sewage system. It's the same thing. So what do we do to get the compressed natural gas? When I said, look, we're going to compress that gas 200 times its volume so that we can be able to transport it from one point to the other. So we have an initiative around the compressed natural gas, and we move the compressed natural gas through what you call cascades so that we'll be able to deliver compressed natural gas to Nigerians at a very cheap rate. Today, the cost of compressed natural gas is 150 naira per standard cubic meter. Meanwhile, the cost of petrol is what? 800 naira. We've been shouting for the last, I pioneered the first set of compressed natural gas stations in Nigeria in 2006. I repeat, 2006. I went to Edo State, we did a pilot, we built 11 compressed natural gas stations. They've been operating. But because of the subsidy mafia, subsequent governments never allowed it to succeed. So we've had a solution almost 20 years back. It's not something that anybody is talking about now. No. This is 2006. If you ask anybody from Edo State here, we'll tell you I have over 10,000 vehicles running in Edo State on compressed natural gas. So what is all these stories about CNG as if it's a new thing? No, it's what I did years back. So we have an initiative around what you call the auto LPG. Again, what is auto LPG? The same cooking gas you are using in your kitchen, in your house. You can use it in your Pass My Neighbor generator. You can use it in your cars. You can use it in your trucks. If you go to the United States, a sizable percentage of all the vehicles they use for conveying school children all over America run on LPG. So we had our own auto LPG. And that is why 3-4 years ago, we started encouraging people to start using LPG, the cooking gas, to run their I Pass My Neighbor generator. And that has really caught up with, wildfire. We have another, initiative called the domestic LPG, so that people can use the same cooking gas, in their homes and their businesses. You can use domestic LPG for heating water. You can use it, for your air conditioning. You can use it for power generation. Because suddenly, DPK went out of, availability, and it was replaced by domestic LPG. So these were things we did because we felt that, look, rather than flaring the gas, let us add value to the gas streams. Let LPG now become the energy of choice for Nigerians all over the country, whether in the rural areas or anywhere. There's no country in the world where DPK is being used for cooking. Every liter of DPK, kerosene that you use in cooking, government is subsidizing by more than 10,000%. Because DPK is actually what you call dual purpose kerosene. It is actually aviation fuel that government was now selling for domestic. So for 50 years, we're wasting money, using aviation fuel to run our homes. And that is why we came with the initiative of the domestic LPG. But better still, we now have what you call the gas-based industry initiative, whereby just an air conditioning system, that blower that you see, you can send in what you call the natural gas liquids that again we get from natural gas, and it can become a petrochemical producer, producing your textiles, producing your fertilizers, producing your pharmaceuticals. All the Panadol we all take, most of the antibiotics come from natural gas. They all come from the, so we have modular systems, that we have designed. So these are not rocket science, It's just that we just need to pray that our politicians do the right thing. Next slide. Good. So we are here today on the issue of energy efficiency. What is it? We are talking about energy efficiency. Essentially, a slide back. Basically, is the process and procedures that we employ so as to use less energy, to perform a particular task, or to produce the same task at and yet achieve, same or similar result. So basically, if I'm using 1 kilowatt hour to manufacture a particular, thing or provide a service, what do I need to do to use that half energy to do the same task? This is quite vital. And then, human energy, electric energy, thermal energy, and mechanical energy. All those are areas that we need to intervene to be able to reduce, therefore, the cost of energy and still achieve the same objective of having a task, done or a product, generated or produced. And of course, it is important because it can help us to lower our carbon footprint, especially in this era that we're talking about sustainable development. So if we're able to get, energy efficiency right in the country, then we will have been able to achieve, a major factor under the principle of lowering the carbon footprint in the country. Next slide. So, to us at the National Gas Expansion Program and Nigeria as a country, it is a deliberate policy that we are going to use natural gas and its streams to be able to drive our economy from now on, so that the country can be able to be competitive in our production, and so that our people can have, cheap energy source, and also both for transportation and electricity generation. There's no gainsaying that gas is globally recognized. Like I said earlier on, there's not a global consensus that, okay, fine, natural gas is transition fuel. But let us remind ourselves, because lately, especially, since there have been new sheriffs, in town, people have been shouting electric vehicles and so on and so forth. And I always shudder and laugh. It's quite hilarious, when people say, oh, we're going to bring electric vehicles into the country. How do you generate electricity for the electric vehicles? You think you're going to use solar and renewable? Forget it. Because I'm an engineer by profession. I now know this. And in fact, in Sorbonne, my thesis was on renewable energy. So with due respect, I can talk authoritatively on this. That's what you call a base load, right? And that's what you call intermittency. You have your solar panels there, or you have your windmills there, or you have your hydro, and there are natural disasters. And you come from an area where, out of the 24 hours, you barely have only just 2 hours of sunlight. So what happens? Right? And if you understand the principles of using battery, which is an accumulator that stores only energy, and as you are drawing on it, you understand you are depleting the energy source. So tell me, how many welders can use solar, to weld equipment? How many? So, and secondly, you say you want electric vehicles, and you go to my village, some distance, where I hardly even have light for illumination, let alone, for generation, and you say you want to have an electric vehicle? Are we kidding here? And we remember 100 years ago, the Western world used coal for the Industrial Revolution. Years later, they said coal was bad. They brought in hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is basically, when we mean hydrocarbon, it is coal and the liquid cousins of coal. That is gas and also petrol, oil. Then they say, yes, that is it. And just suddenly, when you now start having new theaters of hydrocarbon operations all over the world, they say, no, these are polluting fuels, therefore we're moving into cleaner fuels, and it's going to be renewable. Right. Suddenly, Russia moves into Ukraine. And then they say, okay, you know what? For energy security, we're going back to coal. Are we kidding? And our administration, everybody else thinks, yeah, everybody, renewable. I'm not one of those. We have 30 million vehicles in this country. So you bring in electric vehicles. What happens to the 30 million vehicles that we have? The UK equivalent of my position, gas expansion program, just said that the UK is still going to be reliant, on gas for the next 30 years. And we have some new upstarts, coming and telling us that, look, electric vehicle, is the way to go to. No, we really need to be serious on all of this. It is not everything that is brought in, that's indeed good for us. By converting the 30 million vehicles that we have in the country, we require at least 1 million technicians. Today, Nigeria has less than 1,000 technicians that can convert vehicles. We're having a deluge of Indians and Chinese trying to come into the country to become technicians, and I said, no, we will not allow that. We are going to train our people to be able to do that. Okay. We need over 30 million combustion kits only for vehicles. But we need additional 10 million combustion kits for what I call prime movers. Now, prime movers are the generators that you have all over the country. So in all, we have about 50 million. We can indeed bring new skills, new technologies. We can do reverse engineering, to locally manufacture the combustion kits, so that we can generate employment for our people. We need at least 1 million technicians. Just imagine if we're able to train 1 million technicians in the next 12 months, we're going to get at least employment for additional 5 million people under this program, which is a fact. And this is what the National Gas Expansion Program is all about. Right. So our objective under the energy efficiency is to make natural gas and natural gas streams available to the SMEs in such a manner that your transportation cost will reduce, that your electricity cost will reduce, and jointly and conjointly, you are going to now result in not only a reduced cost of operation, cost of manufacturing, but even cost of movement of your goods and services all over the country. Energy that is cheaper, accessible and affordable, because unlike crude oil, Dangote refinery has been on there. We know the stories about all our refineries. It takes me 6 months to bring gas from under the ground and deliver in your home. All simply because if I get lean gas, which is very, very dry, all I need is what you call a scrubber, clean it up, remove the small impurities, and I can deliver it. So the question is that why haven't we been doing this over the last 50 years? Subsidy. But it is now the reality is hitting us. And we are assuring you that under the National Gas Expansion Program, and I'm sure some of you have already converted your generators at home, 15,000, 20,000. We are working to remove additional hurdles so that you can have conversion kits for your generators at 5,000 naira. So that for your cars, you can have conversion kits that will be affordable. So that for your trucks, so that for your small generators. This is exactly what we're doing. It is also necessary for homes for cooking, lighting, and warmth. Next slide. Gas in the various streams. Now, this is where we come in. When you get a molecule of gas, I told you earlier on, elementary chemistry, the methane we are talking about is C4, right? It is the same gas you get from a sewage system. You call it biomass or whatever it is the same. All we do with technology is that we either bring the gas out in the form of cooking gas, which means you use it in your cylinders in the house, your 12.5 kg cylinder, your 5 kg cylinder, or we can compress it 200 times its volume, so that you can now move it further. That is the compressed natural gas. But then, if you use compressed natural gas for power generation, for your transportation can only go 300 kilometers at the farthest. But if I want to move goods from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri and back to Port Harcourt without refueling on the way, I will run the truck on LNG. What is the liquefied natural gas? Now, what is liquefied natural gas? Unlike the compressed natural gas that you compress 300 times its volume, in the case of liquefied natural gas, you compress it 600 times its volume at minus 162 degrees Celsius, which means you turn the gas into solid, into ice block. So that enables you, a trailer can move from Lagos to Kano back to Lagos with only filling once. The same trailer can move goods and services from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri and back to Port Harcourt filled only once. So if you can do that, instead of paying $1 million for a trailer that to move goods from Kano to Lagos, you pay 200,000 naira. Do we have it? We just commissioned one in Kaduna on Tuesday. I personally commissioned that of, Kano, on Wednesday, 2 days ago. So we already have all this infrastructure. But you know what? The subsidy merchants do not want Nigerians to have this. We have them in the country. It's just because I'm not giving that much, I would have shown you all the locations where we have this infrastructure. We have 26 locations for CNG in the country already. We have LNG locations all over the country. And we have demystified even LNG in such a manner that you can have an LNG plant that is not more than that box. Right. We have all of those. But the subsidy mafia is very, very powerful. Far beyond what you think. Otherwise, this is a system that has been operating for the last almost 20 years in this country. Yet they never, ever, ever want Nigerians to know. Today, we can crash the price of energy by 60% in the next 90 days. Do we have the infrastructure? We have. What we need to move LNG from one part of the country to the other is what is called cryogenic trucks. We have over 300 cryogenic trucks parked in Rumuji in River State as I speak. It's just amazing the kind of control we have. We have it. Can we deploy them immediately? Of course we can deploy them. They've been there for the last 5 years. We have cascades that can move, CNG trucks all over the country. Of course, everybody knows about LPG. All we need are just the combustion kits. So they say, okay, go ahead and bring the trucks, but we'll make sure you don't have the combustion kits. This is the issue. And what is the combustion kits? 50% of the combustion kits is just a cylinder. The remaining are just mechanical and ICU, an electronic device that can be made by Zen Engineering right in Idu here in Abuja. Zen Engineering has one of the biggest 3D printer additive manufacturing capacity that are only available only in Nigeria and South Africa on the African continent. It's been comatose for the last 10 years. Listen, the less negative news I give you, I think the better it is for you. But just to let you know that once the right policies are implemented, the country has the infrastructure to make these molecules available in different streams. And this is what the National Gas Expansion Program, is all about. Next slide. The good news is that we have all the solutions that are tailored towards addressing the challenges of the SMEs as far as energy is concerned. The solutions are cheaper, affordable, accessible, and available. Right. The significance of energy efficiency in the SME sector is that it will contribute to the growth of the country in form of employment generation, increased gross domestic product, among others. Next slide. Next slide. We're going to share with you the slide so that we'll have more time to discuss. Let's go finally to conclusion and parting words. Next slide. Next slide. You can go through it. Once you drop your email address, we're going to make sure that we share all of this with you. Now, the precarious and daunting situation currently experienced in the downstream petroleum sector is a bitter reality that requires the urgent attention of all of us present in this hall. And the only alternative in the short, medium, and long term is gas. Like I said earlier on, our country is richly endowed with abundant gas resource, and we can leverage on these to use as a catalyst for the SMEs development, and by extension, our country. All I ask everybody in this hall is let us with this information. Please go through again this presentation. Let us use social media. Let us create a critical mass of opinion influencers to make sure that our government administrators do the right thing. May God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'd rather you also stay to be part of the discourse because it's a bit of analogies around your core area. I'd like to invite Dr. Nura again to please join us on this end of the divide. Let me welcome the Honorable Commissioner of SME Niger State. I'd like to welcome Honorable Elizabeth Shaba to please join us on this other end of the divide. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome from the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Mrs. Kufon, to please join us here. She's Director SME Finance. I'd like to welcome you here. Ladies and gentlemen, so amazing we have more female to treat this discourse. May I find the honor to welcome from the African Secretariat Ghana. I'd like to welcome Ms. Joyce Let's Swallow to please join us here. Shall we please put our hands together for her? And of course, I like the paper presenter to also join because this is a bit technical. By the way, for those of you with questions, you may write them down during the tea break. We'll address some of them. However, at some point, we'll have a few persons who will attend to all of our questions. I'd like to welcome again from the AFC FTA Secretariat Ghana to join us. And then also with us from Côte d'Ivoire is Dr. Elias. Thank you very much. Dr. Nura, please.
Okay, good afternoon once again. Thank you so much. I think that presentation said it all. You have really done justice to the topic. Now, my first question is to the speaker. Now, this CNG maybe conversion, I know you have said a lot, but our youth or SMEs, they want to join in the business because that's the future. Anyone that can key into this business, it means you are going to have that advantage before others who go into CNG conversion, CNG business in the ecosystem. Now, what do you think, what are those opportunities for the micro, small, and medium enterprises in this CNG conversion business?
Thank you very much. Let me once again elucidate. It's actually a misnomer to focus the entire gas ecosystem around CNG. CNG is not the issue really. And unfortunately, politicians wrongly picked up CNG because of lack of understanding of the industry. And they promoted CNG as if that is the only thing that comes out of natural gas. The natural gas ecosystem, like I said earlier on, is that you bring gas from the ground in its natural form. Again, I repeat, which is what you call methane. Right. It has 1 carbon atom and 4 hydrogen atoms. And it is the same that you get from sewage system, from your latrines, from the decomposition of vegetable, materials. It is the same. Now, it is the mode of transportation that now makes it either to be CNG or LNG, or if you now move it further, to LPG. So, to us in the industry, we always feel very, very embarrassed when in the face of the whole world, Nigerian leaders are talking about CNG. It is trying to show us as we don't even know what we're talking about, which is quite unfortunate. And we have done all we could to make the politicians to understand, please stop using the word CNG, CNG, CNG. But it's like I remember in the years where everybody associates bunkering as if it's an illegal activity. No, bunkering is not an illegal activity. It is illegal bunkering that is the problem. So CNG is the form of compressing natural gas